I'm Becky.
And I'm Tess.
And we are here to talk about Love and Death today.
So, if you didn't know, there's a new show on HBO Max called Love and Death, and it follows the true story of Candy Montgomery, who murdered Betty Gore.
There's several things that I think is really good to talk about with this, but we're going to focus on the mental health aspects. So there's actually another show called Candy on Hulu. I like Love and Death more for a lot of reasons, not necessarily for the way that they did it, but I felt like it made Candy more like a real person.
Yeah.
It didn't make her into like a monster.
Yeah, because I don't think she was.
I don't either.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's kind of important to talk about.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to something as gruesome as what happened,
Yeah.
people think the person automatically who would do something like that has to be a sociopath or something crazy.
No.
And that's what I feel like Love and Death did a good job of.
Yeah.
Is not making her into somebody crazy.
Yeah.
But that something very traumatic happened.
Yeah.
And she snapped. And I do think it was like her going into fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
Because at least the way it's portrayed. Now, of course, like nobody can ever know except for the two people that was in that room.
Yeah.
But I feel like just based on everybody's accounts of what happened and the way that they portrayed it in the show, if we just focused on that, I think it would definitely be safe to say like she was not a sociopath.
No. And I mean, if you think about it, she was a loving mother who cared for her children and who cared for the people in her community
In her church.
And like she was never pegged originally as someone who would be able to do something like that.
No.
And so I think that just really goes to show that in the human race we can really judge people really easily, like you said, and I really don't think that she was this awful person, and I think Elizabeth Olsen really did a great job.
Oh my
it was
gosh,
so good.
She did so good. Let's start with talking about Candy. Okay, so I want to know, like, from your perspective, what do you think of Candy? And let's start with like some of the weird things that they did, like planning the affair.
I know,
for
like,
6 months.
I know. I thought the whole thing to get you to watch Love and Death was are you interested in having an affair?
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like that also goes to show that it was not a spur of the moment decision. Like, it was not, it was very thought out, and they like made sure that they wanted to not hurt anyone in the process.
They didn't ever want their spouses to know. Now, we're not condoning affairs.
No,
Please
we're
hear
not.
that.
Yeah.
But I think it goes back to the fact that neither one of them wanted to hurt anybody. That also shows, like, no matter what you do, it's going to hurt somebody in the end if you do something like that. But I think what's interesting about it is both of them planned for so long.
I know.
Because they didn't want to hurt their partners. But it also talked a lot about the fact that, like, the affair wasn't so much about sex.
Yeah.
It was more about companionship. And I think both of them felt like a loss in companionship in their marriage, but for two very different reasons. And I think that's also really important too, because like, I think it was the last episode and like the second to last episode, Candy's husband was like relieved that nothing happened to his wife, because he said like Betty was a bigger girl than her, she was stronger, and so he also blamed himself a little bit, because like their marriage just wasn't at its best place. And I think that's also really interesting, because we're always really surprised when like a spouse stands by someone in this kind of situation. But I thought that was really telling as well. Like, she's not this crazy, mean, horrible wife. It was something that went very sideways.
And I really think like the whole point of like the court like tried to make on her defense was that she had no intention of going in that house and killing Betty Gore. Like, she did not that it was not premeditated in any way. She came to get Alyssa's swimsuit, and I really think that if Betty had not pointed out anything, then nothing would have happened.
Oh, I definitely think if she wouldn't have attacked Candy.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It never would have happened. And another thing that I thought was interesting, so in the last episode when Candy's on the stand, she says, like, over and over, she didn't fear for her life, even after, like, she had been hit in the head with the axe. Like, she didn't think Betty was capable of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting, too, because it wasn't until, like, she literally couldn't save herself and she tried to get away and Betty blocked her from getting out the door. That's when she snapped. Now, granted, in the show it talked about, this is something that's important, it talked about Betty going shh, and that like triggered
an emotional response,
a PTSD response, and that's kind of the thing that snapped her. I don't know if that's true or not. It could be. But I feel like the bigger truth, in my opinion, of what happened, just from a therapist mental health point of view, is she continued to feel like she was in danger, and she went into fight or flight from that like trauma reaction, and that sent her brain into the reptilian brain, which we all have, and that takes emotion completely out of it. You're not in an emotional brain anymore. And so from there, then you just respond by protecting yourself. And that's really what I think happened, is she went into her reptilian brain, she protected herself, and that, like, even though I think the big thing that people really stick to is how many times she hit her with an axe.
I know.
But I think that really what happened, and of course we weren't there.
Yeah.
Hold on just 1 second.
Okay.
I think what really happened is the fact that she she had like snapped, and she was so afraid for her life that she basically like chopped her until she knew she was safe.
She said, I was so afraid that she would get back up again, that I just kept hitting her until I knew she wouldn't. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, and you also talked about how there's no emotion in it. So, right. I mean, it's just like all she was doing, in my opinion, is she was making sure that her life wasn't in danger anymore, like you said. Which, I mean,
the reasoning was gone.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And I feel like people are so hung up on the fact that she hit her so many times.
Which I get.
Yeah. But they couldn't understand what she was going through in that moment. Mm-hmm. And also, like, coming from someone who has mental health issues, once you get in that headspace, it's really hard to get out of it. And so, I mean, no, there was not a reason for her to hit her so many times. I think she didn't even realize that she had hit her so many times, because that when the attorney asked, he was like, do you remember how many times you hit her while she was up, when she was down? And she was like, no. Like, they could have told her that she hit her one time and she probably would have agreed, because
yeah, I agree with that, and I think that has to do with dissociation.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I actually wanted to hit on is dissociation, because there are a lot of different variations to dissociation, and when you're traumatized or have been in a trauma, and you go into like that fight or flight mode, your brain tries to protect itself. Because when you're in that heightened level of danger, it doesn't want you to remember, because it's so traumatic. And so it will make you not even remember. Now, granted, again, it's very important. I'm not saying that like takes away her culpability or anything like that, but dissociation is very real, and it can cause you to not remember. In fact, if you are dissociated, you won't remember. There's a very big difference, though, between dissociative and like multiple personality disorder. Which,
do you think she was bipolar?
I don't at all. I actually don't think she had a mental health disorder. At least based on how she was portrayed in the show, that did not come off to me at all. But back to like multiple personalities, or it's actually called dissociative identity disorder, that is 100% completely different and extremely, extremely rare. And so it is not something in any way I'd want to have there to be like a mix up with this.
Yeah. even in the show before the court what's the word, trial had even happened, she had kept muttering to herself, like right after she did it, she had kept muttering to herself it didn't happen, or like maybe not those words even, and then she would mutter like, go to Target, Father's Day cards, go to church, shower, and then she would like keep going on and repeating that in her head and repeating and regimenting that so that she wouldn't focus on it, which I mean that's also, that can be a coping skill.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
She was in shock.
Yeah.
I really think she was completely in shock.
And I don't think that she knew that she was capable of that. So she did that, and she would, and that's how she could act so normal at church. And she was like, I
agree.
Target, Father's Day cards, church, shower. And so it would just keep going. And you could very much tell, like, once again, Elizabeth Olsen did an amazing job. Like, it was so good. I literally thought it was her.
Best acting ever.
It was so good. But, it was just like, you could really feel what she was feeling, and you could feel how, like, she was really just trying to cope with herself, and I think something really wrong that they did on trial was they were like, well, you were just trying to pretend it never happened so you could feel better about yourself, and she was like, no, that's not what was going on. Like, she was coping, and I mean, I'm not trying to condone murder in any way, but I don't even think it was murder. I think it was self-defense, in my opinion.
I do agree with you. I think it was self-defense. Actually, I don't mean to interrupt you,
You're
but
good.
One of the things you said I think is crucial to this whole story, and that is she didn't think she could ever do something like that, and I think we should all apply that to ourselves.
Oh, dang.
You don't think you're capable of something that brutal until you're put in a position to where you're fighting for your life, or like the life of your children or spouse, or something like that. Like, we don't know what we're capable of, and I think that is something that this show, going back to this show versus Candy, that is something that this show did a really good job of, is making her a normal, kind, loving, caring mother, wife, friend, somebody she was very active in her community,
In her church,
and so I feel like that is part of the reason this is so good, is because it really does take the belief that like she was some monster out of it, and just like, I think it leaves you with the question, like, could you do something like that? And I think a lot of people would say no, absolutely not, but I don't believe that's true. And that's where I think like we really have to look at the fight or flight piece and the mental health and the trauma, because if not, I think if this were to happen now, like the social media, the media itself, like it would turn her into this insane monster.
Yeah.
I mean,
granted,
it did then, but can you imagine now?
No.
Like, it would be nuts. And I feel like it just did a really good job.
Yeah. And I really think that, like, I think the lawyer also did a really good job. Like, that's something that I want to touch on really quick. He was not a criminal lawyer, and
he was amazing.
Yeah, and it's just like, and the way I loved, and I love how he reacted, because initially she was the only person that he was the only person that she told.
Yeah.
And I think that he reacted really well, because he shut his door, he was very calm, and he didn't like make any accusations, and because that originally he thought that what's his face? Alan did it.
Yeah.
And which I think, okay, that's also something that I want to touch on, because I think something that we're really good at as a society is pinning it on the spouse or the girlfriend or the boyfriend or whatever. But Alan was very clearly out of town. Like, he was...
They still brought him in for questioning.
I know, and they read him his rights and everything, and I was like, what is going on? Like,
I know. It's like,
what are you doing?
You haven't done it.
No, and it's like, you can check the phone records. Like, you could still do that, right? In the 80s? Yeah. You could check the phone records. There's so many ways to prove that he was out of town.
The flight
flight number. It's like, It's like, what are you guys doing?
I know, it's so crazy.
Initially, I was so confused because I was like, what is going on? Because
I know.
they brought him in for questioning and then they were like, okay, sir, here's your rights. And they started like reading them off and I was like, what is going on? Like, guys, what are we doing?
Yeah, I agree. Also, this is something, like, going back to one of the things you were saying, her lawyer knew her. Like, he attended church with her.
Yeah.
And so that kind of also shows that she, and I feel like she didn't, like, she wasn't the kind of person, at least based on, like, of course, this is only based on the show. We can't know real life what it was like, but, like, she was clearly someone that people really respected.
Yeah.
And she didn't seem like she was two-faced. Like, she seemed like
she seemed a very genuine person.
Yeah, like, how she acts is what you get. Like,
yeah. And
so
also
that also made me feel like that's like another reason that for him to not automatically like think negatively, and he just went into, okay, I've never done this before, but I can figure it out.
Yeah, and I also think that something else that we can show about Candy's personality is originally, before the murder had even happened, when there was a new pastor, the pastor had said, if you get Candy on with the congregation, if you get Candy on your side, the congregation will like you.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it was
true.
like, Candy is, if you have Candy, you have the congregation.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
like,
I forgot about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's a good
so
point.
I think that, I mean, obviously, like you said, she seemed like a good person. Like,
yeah, and everybody and it's funny. So I want to talk about Betty too.
Yeah.
But it's funny because even in the trial, which Betty was the one who was dead.
Yeah.
But it's almost like even the pastor and some of the congregants were like against Betty, because she kind of had a little bit of a harsher personality.
I mean, I didn't like Betty personally.
Yeah,
I
but
did not like her.
she just was different. But I think the thing about Betty that we need to talk about is she clearly suffered from depression.
Yeah, especially postpartum.
Yes, exactly. And then not only did she suffer from postpartum depression, but she thought, so when this all happened, she thought she was pregnant again, and that really scared her. Like, she was freaking out. And somehow she figured out, and we don't really get a lot of information about how she figured it out. Me.
Yeah. Oh, and also another thing that I wanted to talk about, how everyone thought Marriage Encounter was a cult.
Yeah,
and I was like,
so funny.
Guys,
I was like, what?
Are healthy relationships a cult now?
Well, Marriage Encounter is kind of like the Family Life Today, like Weekend to Remember.
Oh,
it's not
yeah.
the same, but it's similar.
Yeah.
And so it is like a church thing, but why even like church people thought it was culty? I'm going to have to check into that because I've never heard of that. But Marriage Encounter's been around forever. Anyways, we went off on a tangent.
We did.
Okay, so back to
what
Betty.
were we talking about? Oh, Betty.
And how she figured it out. I don't think we know.
No, we don't.
I do not think we know. But the point is that basically I feel like it's important to talk about her depression.
Oh, I have a question, actually.
Yeah.
Do you think that her depression could have led to her wanting to kill Candy?
I think she snapped. I definitely don't think it was premeditated.
Oh, I think it was. Because she was
don't.
saying, like, I want to kill you. Like, I'm going to kill you. So
okay,
you
like,
can't have him.
Maybe premeditated in, like, 5 minutes prior, but I don't think she ever would have, like, I don't think she didn't plan to kill her. I think I think Candy showed up and
But she would have known. Like, she wouldn't have asked about the affair if she wouldn't have known. And she was clearly very upset. I mean, she literally tried to murder her.
I know, but I don't think she planned out murdering her. I mean, that would have been a weird plan. Oh, she'll come over and then I'll kill her with an axe. Like, that doesn't even make sense. I think that...
A+ plan, guys.
I think that something happened in her brain, who knows what, and she snapped, and she didn't want to lose her husband, but also I think she was, I don't know. That's a whole different subject.
Okay, but the thing is, I think that Betty, she didn't want to lose her husband, but I think that's exactly what happened, is she thought about losing her husband because of the affair, because she clearly didn't know it was over.
Yeah, but I don't think she planned out killing her. I think like it happened in the moment. Like
oh, okay.
she went
I see what you're
out to
saying.
the garage
I think
and
that-
got the axe, which also
Weird murder weapon.
wow.
Like, what's the idea here? Like,
True.
yeah.
Maybe that, I mean,
It's giving Clue.
it's really weird. I don't know. So anyways, I just want to make sure that we talk about, like, I feel like Betty had suffered from depression for a really long time.
Yeah.
Obviously, depression does not make you want to kill people.
Yeah.
But
That is
I
important to know.
do think she went into some form of psychosis when, like, something snapped inside her and she went crazy.
I feel like a snap is different though, because I feel like it was a little more gradual than a complete alter. Because that even though,
Well, I don't know. I don't think that. Because why would...
are you still hung up on the murder weapon? Is that what you're going off
A
of?
little, but also, like, I don't think... When Candy showed up, she wasn't thinking, oh, good, Candy's
Oh,
here.
good.
I can murder her now.
Perfect timing.
She's not going to take my man. I mean, they were getting ready to go.
She's not gonna take my man.
They're getting ready to
You
go.
ain't gonna take my man, Slash. He's mine.
Oh my gosh. No, but seriously, like, they were getting ready to go on a trip and all of that. So, also, can we just talk a little bit? I think this is a really important point too, because it was brought up. She, like, was this great mother and amazing, all that, but she left that baby in the house alone.
I know.
And so that was something I had been thinking about, like, from the beginning.
Yeah.
But they did bring that up at trial, and it, like, after she explained it, I was like, that makes sense.
What'd
that
she explain?
I think she had literally dissociated. She was in fight
She was
or
not
flight,
thinking about the baby.
and she was not thinking, oh, the baby's there, I gotta make sure the baby's safe. Like,
Yeah.
I think she just left. I mean, she was freaking out about the blood on her body,
Mhm.
and, like, about to go
Do you-
crazy.
Do you also think that she had a form of OCD because of how the
Don't.
blood was, how that made her feel?
No, because, I mean, if I had that on me, I would want the blood off.
Yeah, but you have very severe OCD.
I do not, it's not
with your
severe.
body.
Nope, it's not severe. It's just a little bit. Just a little.
You
which-
feel like you want to rip your own eyeballs out when your hands are dirty.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Okay, different. That's a different point.
subject.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, anything else that we think is important to talk about?
Oh, do you have any theories on why she was so adamant about, because in her story, I think the one thing that I always noticed that she never changed was she showed me the new puppy. Which, I mean, maybe that's just not a severe point, like,
I think it was just the thing that stuck in her brain during her timeline. Like, it's the thing that she thought about and remembered.
Yeah.
Which I get. I mean, it's like a before and after.
Yeah, and also I think the puppies were a very, I think they were a point made. Like, you know how when the puppies were in the window, they were barking while everything was going on?
Yeah.
I think, because I don't think they would have had that happen so many times if it wasn't something important.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I digress.
Okay, so what did you think of the not guilty versus guilty verdict?
I mean, I was rooting for Candy. Like,
yeah.
my bad, guys, but I loved Candy.
I know. I
think-
thought that they would come back with guilty, but I thought that she deserved not guilty.
I was hoping and praying for not guilty over here. Like, I was
Yeah.
very nervous that she was... And it really made you feel for her. Because that, like
I
you said,
agree.
I think that's a really good thing that this show portrayed was you felt horrible for Candy.
Yep.
Like, I mean, maybe that could have been just me, but I really think that the thing that they did was make you feel so bad for Candy.
I know.
Which-
I agree. And make you like her. She was a very likable character.
I know, I really liked Candy.
And that was important, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think that how they coupled it with, like, the sweet southern accent, I think that was very cute.
You do like a southern accent.
I do. But,
Yeah.
like, I was really wanting not guilty, which I don't think she deserved guilty. I mean,
I don't either.
it could be my own personal biases, but, I mean, the jury voted not guilty. And they were out there saying Scarlet Harlot, and...
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was so awful. And then it was like, and then there were posters like, you're a sinner, and like,
It was rough, and I mean, that's people.
That's the media, yeah.
Not just the media. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
The media, but her church people stood by her. So the people that actually knew her were the ones who stood by her, except for her old pastor.
I know. I was so angry.
Not buying it, which is interesting.
I know. But another thing that I wanted to talk about was I got so angry at Pat during the trial. Pat's her husband.
Why?
Because he kept being like, why can't you tell me anything? Why can't you tell me anything? Yeah. I was like, shut up!
And we don't know that that's actually how he was. They might have just made that for the show, but...
But, I mean, I did not like Pat. I mean, I liked him, but I was so angry how he kept asking. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was good that he stuck by her and everything. I just, like... I don't know.
Not a fan.
No.
Okay.
I was also not a fan of Alan, though, so I mean...
Yeah. Girl power.
Literally.
Okay. So, this is our first review. If you like it, like and share, and we'll have more reviews. We're going to talk about TV shows and movies and books. Our next review will be on one of Colleen Hoover's books. So that will be coming up soon, and we're super excited to create more content. So definitely in the comments, maybe share what you think we should talk about. Yeah, share what you think we should talk about, and like give us ideas. Like on things to review, because we read a lot and we watch a lot of TV. So we do, and I heart documentaries. Oh my goodness! And docuseries, which of course is a docuseries. So like I'll watch all the documentaries. We should do one on Bama Rush, the new show that came out. I know that does look good. Okay. Sounds good. Well. All right. Make sure to subscribe and like and share. And we'll talk to you later.